Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode or match preview, I should say. Wolves away. We've taken a little bit of break from the channel for international break, but we're back. We're ready to break down, hopefully, another West Ham win as we go into April now under Graham Potter. Wolves, I would say they're edging towards safety now. They were obviously banging trouble just a few weeks ago, but they've picked up some good results in recent weeks and, yeah, kind of cleared away from that relegation zone. But West Ham have ambitions of our own. Hopefully, we can take 3 points away at Wolves on Tuesday night and take that confidence into the Bournemouth game at home on Saturday in a few days after that. So, yeah, if you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel and stuff. Let's start with, before we get into the stats and stuff, just how you're feeling right now, coming back from the international break. You feeling refreshed away from West Ham?
Oof. I am. Been a long for me personally. So I think having a bit of a break from West Ham has been quite nice. I went to the England game, Latvia. Unfortunately, go to quite a few England partners. She's from Latvia as well, so kind of had to attend that. But just, I don't know. I think I'm looking forward to see how we finish the season, and this summer's massive for us. So I'm already sort of looking towards and seeing if we've got plans in place already, and hopefully, I think this is going to be a strong foot forward for us.
Yeah, no, I
Especially
do
if we
agree.
can pick up 3 points.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Wolves away, we haven't tended to do massively well there. I know we did beat them I think it was last year. I think Ward-Prowse scored a corner and we won 2-1 somehow, just got through that game. But let's take a look at the stats so far going into this season for both teams. So Wolves are on 26 points, West Ham on 34. Wolves have scored more goals than West Ham with 40 compared to West Ham's 33. However, they've conceded a lot more with 58 goals conceded, one of the highest in the league. And West Ham have conceded 49, also pretty high in the league. And the positions in the table kind of reflect both teams' poor performances this season. Wolves in 17th, just below West Ham in 16th. When we look at the expected data as well, it's not pretty reading for either side. Wolves on 29.52, West Ham on 30.42. So really similar in terms of that expected data. Expected goals scored, Wolves are lower than West Ham, 32.57 compared to our 39.13. And their expected goal conceded are actually lower than West Ham at 49.22 and West Ham's at 55.19. So it's kind of the reverse of what we actually see in the stats. So Wolves' defense should be better, but West Ham's attack should be better than Wolves' in terms of the data that we've seen. So when we talk about Wolves, they've obviously had an up and down season so far, stuff, managerial changes, as have West Ham. Controversy with players, really difficult situations for them on and off the pitch. We think back to the reverse fixture when we beat them 2-1, and obviously the stuff that happened after that with, I think it was Lamina on that day. What do you think of Wolves? When you think of Wolves, what do you think of their current situation and how they find themselves? Should they be higher than they are right now in 17th with the squad that they have?
I think the main issue for them has been they concede silly goals. I know they won against Southampton, but they conceded against Southampton. And I would kind of hasten and say that Southampton are probably the worst Premier League side we've ever seen, maybe even worse than Derby County. And that's just my own personal opinion, but I think they've won one in their last four. I know they drew against Everton, same as we did, but I think beside their very good and I would say almost underrated front forward, because Cunha gets so much positive praise, and I think people kind of like to stick the boot on Strand Larson, but the guy got both goals against Southampton. He's performing well. Both of them combined have over 20 goals between them, and I think the main issue for them has been at the back, and Sarr is someone who I think had one standout season, but has never really replicated that in goal. So for me, the main issue for them is at the back, and if we can get at them, and with the likes of Bowen cutting inside, work their keeper, I think we've got a good. But I don't really know what to say about Wolves, because they have the ownership links, and their recruitment should be really solid, but it just doesn't seem to have been up to the level. Andre's been fantastic. Jorgen Strand Larsen, as I mentioned, on a loan is a really good deal, I think. And the centre Reims, whose name escapes me, is Agbadou.
Yeah.
He is someone that I really liked in France, but just the overall ability of their defence seems to be at odds with one another. And I know their output, particularly on the left-hand side, their output has been really impressive without Nori, but it just doesn't seem to be correlating into the defensive side of things. And
Yeah.
they struggle to really hold out for long periods of games.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think if we look at their overview from this season so far, that kind of paints the picture as to how they've been performing. So they have the 8th worst offensive record in the Premier League with 40 goals scored. They have the 4th worst expected offensive record in the Premier League with 32.57. So that's definitely been an area of concern for them. And defensively as well, they've got the 4th worst defensive record in the Premier League right now with 58 goals conceded, which you cannot do at this level. Otherwise, you're going to be down there at the bottom, near towards the bottom of the Premier League table. They rank 17th for expected points from this season. They're averaging around 1.3 goals per 3.8 goals per game with an XG of 1.15, so slightly overperforming in front of goal. And defensively, they're averaging 2 goals conceded per game with an expected goals against of 1.74. So they're conceding slightly more than they are expected to. And their possession stats, they're averaging around 48.33 possession so far, percent possession in the Premier League so far. So it hasn't been a great season for them. It hasn't been a great season for us. Cunha's going to be banned for this game, which obviously limits their creativity even further. But again, they got through it against Southampton. They got that point against Everton the week before that. And now they come back into this game. They'll be hoping to get 3 points from this. But obviously, West Ham have their own ambitions for what remains of this season. I think both clubs are in a similar situation. I think Wolves now 9 points above the relegation zone. They can take a little bit of a breather. And then, yeah, we're just 17 points clear of Leicester now. So we're safe. And we've been saying it on this channel for a long time. For Graham Potter, this is just a chance to assess players, integrate how he wants to play. What I've felt disappointed by in the last couple of games from West Ham is our approach, Sloth. And it's been, playing that back three, midfield five, and then just Bowen and Kudus up front. Really, that's how we've been playing. I wanted to see us be a little bit more expansive against teams. I know we beat Leicester with that. We obviously beat Arsenal and took that forwards, and we haven't really changed since then against the likes of Newcastle. And I can't remember who we played last time, but it hasn't really excited me by the type of style we're playing. I know what Graham Potter's come in to do is assure that defensive record that we had, which was so bad, which he's definitely doing, and we've definitely improved defensively. But going forwards, we've actually regressed. And, there's a lot of statistics out there about how many shots we're averaging per game. It's the lowest in the Premier League right now. And we're not really creating those chances in games to win games, or, to dominate possession, or, just clear signs of progression that we would want to start seeing soon. Are you worried about that yet at all? Or is it still early days for you? And, it's still not really his squad?
No, I think my disappointment comes with the January business, and it seems to be the same every season. But I think if we got in someone like Muniz, he's scoring for fun at the moment. I think had we got him through the door, then we'd probably be looking maybe 3-4 points better off, maybe even more. Disappointment for me has been Evan Ferguson, and the lack of impact, or should we say, not necessarily him, but the deal itself of bringing someone in who isn't fit and
Are you
isn't
surprised he hasn't
having
been
an
given a
impact.
start yet, Sloth? Because, obviously he was brought in, he's played under Graham Potter before. We still haven't really seen them, as you say, him get those minutes under Graham Potter. So what was the point of this deal if he isn't going to play?
I think it was literally just to get someone through the door that we didn't have to pay that much for.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my personal opinion, but I think it's also someone that Potter knows personally and can kind of trust. He probably just had no idea about the level of fitness that he was at. And I know that people might say, "Oh, well, that's what a medical is for." It's not. A medical is not for match sharpness and things like that. It's not a way to judge that sort of thing. It would have just been, has he fully recovered, or is he going to recover before the end of the season? And for me, it's been a real disappointment. I would love to see him start more games, because I think if West Ham are in any way looking to sign him, he has to score goals. That we should never be looking, if he ends this loan period with less than 4 goals, I don't think we should be looking to sign him, full stop.
Would you
We
start him
should
against
use that
Wolves?
money elsewhere. Yeah, and I think I'm not surprised that he's not started. I'm kind of just disappointed, as a football fan, that he's not been able to grab a hold of things. And I think particularly in the last game against Everton, the disappointment there was that the substitutions felt really they felt more conservative, and
Yeah.
it was a case of us trying to hold on to a point or 3 points, as opposed to actually sealing the 3 points. And I think he obviously doesn't trust Ferguson enough to be that focal point and take us further up the pitch at the moment. So,
Well, he came on
uh,
against Everton in what, the 92nd minute of the game. Like,
yeah,
how are you meant to make an impact? With what, 3 minutes of a match left?
yeah. I think when you look at, say, I know Wolves have tended to play a 3-4-2-1 basically,
Yeah.
and they've used Jorgen Strand Larsen as the sort of way that I think we would have maybe liked Ferguson,
Yeah.
and have him as that anchor point, and running at the. We just we look so disjointed when we have Kudus or Bowen up top, and it's not a mark against either of those players, but they're just not suited to demands of that role. And I think if we don't address that, if Ferguson can't get fit, then it's almost worth changing the system, like you say, and moving away from the 3 backs, so we can try and, well, you either stick with the 3 at the back and you're happy with grinding out games and potentially dropping points, or you go for a totally different approach and change the attack and hope for more goals. And that's a big ask.
Yeah, I think for me, the disappointment I've seen is when Graham Potter first came in, he was playing a slightly different type of back three. So he was playing a midfield two, and then he was playing, 2 kind of number 8s or number 10s either side of a striker. That was Fulkirk in that cup game where he went off injured. So I think that's what I envisioned the striker signing of Evan Ferguson being. We obviously adapted for that Arsenal game and played a flat midfield three to combat Arsenal's strengths and play Bowen and Kudus on the counter, which worked really well on that day. But I feel like Graham Potter's now holding on to that a little bit too much, and we're playing it in games where we shouldn't be, because not every team in the Premier League has the quality or will play the same way as Arsenal. So we can't really afford to play that flat three of midfield to kind of counter every single team. Like, I know we beat Leicester on that day, and you don't change a winning team. I completely understand that, but we're now at a point where I feel like we should be starting someone like Evan Ferguson as the striker and going back to a midfield pivot of a 2, even with the back 3, and then deciding on your midfield 2 and playing a little bit more aggressive. You can then have Kudus and Bowen either side of a striker, or dropping Kudus and playing Bowen as that inverted right, and then pushing Paqueta higher up. Like, there's so many different things we could do. I just don't think playing a midfield 3 of, Souček, Alvarez, Ward-Prowse, or, even if it's Paqueta, Souček, Ward-Prowse, whatever we've been playing in recent weeks, it's just too defensive. And I don't think it suits Bowen or Kudus either. And that's my biggest issue with how we've played in the last few weeks or last few games under Graham Potter. So, yeah, I would like to see Evan Ferguson start in this game. I don't know if Fulkirk's going to be back for this one in the squad. Hopefully he's going to be back on the bench or in and around it. But I would like to see that focal point, like you said, like Wolves are doing with their kind of 3-4-3 or 3-4-2-1. Is there anyone else you would be looking to start in this game? Obviously, Scholes came out of the team for that Everton game. Emerson came back in. Would you keep it the same? I think for me, I probably would, based off Emerson's performance.
Yeah, I think Emerson had a pretty solid game. It's one of those things where I think both players, Scholes could maybe say, "Oh, it felt a bit hard done by to be dropped," but at the end of the day, they're both performing well, so they need to kind of, if we want to progress as a side, we need to have two competent players in every position. So we need to get used to that rotation in and out. Keep Emerson just because I think he can offer that level of in terms of an attacking threat. And, particularly without Cunha, I think they maybe don't pose the attacking risk that they would. Particularly, and that's not a mark on Strand Larsen. I just think that Cunha is electric, and he gets into most teams in the Premier League. So it's a case of we'd have really needed to be on our A game to try and stop him. But I think when you change the dynamic of that attack, maybe it's just a case of us focusing on our strengths and utilizing things like our pace and hoping we capitalize on Ferguson's goal on international duty and Kudus' goal on international duty, so we can get the confidence a bit higher in those players.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Obviously, Ferguson's come off the back of that international break, and hopefully, with a bit of confidence and swagger, and Graham Potter will recognise that and play him as a striker. I don't think he will, but yeah, hopefully he does, and we go a little bit more adventurous. But here's how we would probably envision both sides lining up. Wolves have played the kind of same starting 11 in the last couple of games, or roughly the same. They do play a back three as well, likely to be Totti, Agbadou, as you mentioned before, Sloth, and Doherty as the other centre back, with a flat four of Aït-Nouri, Andre, Gomez, and Semedo. And then they've been playing Bellegarde, Strand Larsen, and Munetsi as the kind of right-sided forward in their attack. When we look at West Ham, again, it's kind of that flat three in midfield that I'd probably expect us to line up with Areola in goal, Kilman, Mavropanos, Todibo as the back three, Emerson and Wan-Bissaka as our wing-backs, Souček, Ward-Prowse, Paqueta. Maybe Alvarez might come into that midfield three. I'm not entirely sure how Graham Potter's going to do it, or whether he'll stick with the same midfield three we played against Everton, and then Bowen and Kudus up front in kind of the striker pairing that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 games under Graham Potter. But yeah, I would really like to see us match up with Wolves, really, in terms of that stylistic approach. Obviously, you'd approach it slightly different in how you want to play, but personnel wise, I would like to see effectively more of a 3-4-2-1. And Evan Ferguson getting that chance to start. I think he deserves that now, because we haven't really seen that yet. Would you make any other changes? Would you bring Alvarez into that midfield three for either Souček, Ward-Prowse, or Paqueta?
I mean, personally, I think I'm just at the point with Mavropanos where I'd probably put Alvarez centre back.
I was thinking that, yeah.
It's a tricky one, because he always seems to do quite well in a Greece shirt, or he has an absolute disaster. And I think more people, I think the fan reception toward him has been pretty ridiculous. You don't boo your own player in terms of, if you're gonna get point scory about booing Zuma when he kicked the cat, you can't boo someone just because they're a bit crap, or you don't like them in terms of their on the pitch performance. For me, that it's just Mavropanos is really bad, but booing him sets a negative precedent and it gets to the team. I just think I'd put in Alvarez there and make him a centre back, so we know he can play that role. His decision making is a bit rash. Compare it to Mavropanos, it's probably considered pretty good.
Well, class.
So yeah, I think that's what I'd go with, and
Okay.
that's probably the only change I'd make. If you're not going to do that, that's probably where I would bring Scarles in and change it and put Cresswell on the left-hand side as well, because I just worry that much about Mavropanos at the moment and the situations that he gifts to the opposition, that I think it is genuinely worth looking at changing the formation instead of playing him.
Yeah, no, he has been poor, and it is frustrating because even against Everton, he played quite well for a lot of it, but there was still those mistakes, and you're still expecting it as a West Ham fan, and you just can't have it. You just can't have that in your back three, and especially because Kilman and Todibo have started to push on now in that back three and are really performing well. We just need that, as you say. Cresswell was doing a good job before that, so I would either bring him in or, as you say, bring Alvarez into the middle of that back three, because then he can progress and almost come into the midfield and join that midfield. If we are going to play a midfield two and a Ferguson striker, it just makes a bit more sense and hopefully offers us a little bit more control in matches as well. But are you confident going into this one, Sloth, on Tuesday night against Wolves away? I think it's going to be a bit of a rubbish game again. Like, even for the neutral, same thing we kind of predicted for Everton. I'm thinking another draw, 1-1. But yeah, what's your score prediction for this one?
I slightly positive. I think it might be a 1-0. I can't see it being, as you said, like, I can't see it being one for the neutral. I think it's going to be a bit of a boring game. And I think as long as the coaching staff and the players have their thinking caps on, like, as long as we're kind of at Mavropanos as well, and if he starts, we're constantly talking to him, then I think we should be able to operate the sort of threat that Strand Larsen has. But again, he is a good player and he does score a wide range of goals. So I'm going to go 1-0, but I'm not exactly confident.
Yeah. It's hard to predict how Graham Potter's going to approach this one, and I think my confidence will depend on that lineup when it's announced an hour and 15 minutes before the game starts. But hopefully we do, and then we take that confidence into the match against Bournemouth on Saturday, as that's definitely a more challenging test, because Bournemouth have been fantastic this season, and they have ambitions of their own for European football. So
Wolves absolutely embarrassed Bournemouth. They completely dominated the game against them. So
yeah,
maybe we can pick up some tips off them against how to play them.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, focus now on Wolves before we even think about Bournemouth. Hopefully we can get 3 points coming off the back of the international break, and Graham Potter will be in full flow at Molineux on Tuesday night. But yeah, let us know down below in the comments section, what is your prediction for the game? Are you confident? What is the score going to be? Would you change anything from the starting 11 that played against Everton before the international break for this game against Wolves? If you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content, and Sloth, until the next one.
Come on, you eyes.